Hello, everybody. I'm Phil Brandt, President and CEO of AAIM Employers Association, and welcome to This Week at Work.
This Week at Work is the only show about the workplace that offers you front row seats and a microphone, featuring experts in human resources and employment law to bring you practical, timely, and accurate insights so you can more effectively lead your organization. It's July 20th, episode 240. Would you like to differentiate yourself when hiring and retaining talent? And we know you would. The fact is, recruits and star employees have choices, and they demand work-life balance and flexibility. But what does that look like? Well, we're excited to introduce you to AAIM Member Lane Heaney, an HR Generalist at Childcare Answers. Lane watches firsthand how her organization empowers employers to provide the support their employees demand. And as a one-person HR department, she often looks to AAIM for support. And we look to you to support the show. Let us know what you're thinking. All this and more on This Week at Work.
Welcome back, everyone. Happy to have you with us again. Bert Garland is not with us, but you just rest assured we have the next best thing, or maybe even the next better thing, and that is Tom Chibnall back to the program. Tom, welcome back. We're happy to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Phil. It's always a pleasure to be here with you, and always a pleasure to fill in for Bert when I can.
Well, it's easy to fill in for Bert. All I ask is that you don't make him look too bad, you know. I'm not sure where Bert is or what he's doing, but we know he's out doing something good for someone. He's such a good contribution to employers and your clients and our members. So I won't be too hard on him, but if we get a chance, we'll poke him in the side while he's not here. But we're happy to have you, Tom, and I'm really interested to hear what you might have to say about this new OSHA reporting. So I'm going to be listening carefully for that. But I also want to take a moment and say good morning to Lane Heaney. Lane is an HR generalist with Childcare Answers now. She is one of our members from the Indianapolis community, and we're so happy to have her on the program. Lane, good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. Good morning, Phil. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. I know you and I have talked for a long time about coming on the program and maybe sharing some of the insights of childcare resources that many people don't know about. I know I've learned a lot working with you over the last couple of years about the services of Childcare Answers. And I think if we can share that with our members, they might be able to take something away and help their employers and employees as well. But let's get things kicked off here with some Q&A survey questions. These are some of my favorite responses to get to study. Let's see. The first question here is, which of the following do you think impacts work-life balance the most? This is a great question. It goes perfect with our topic and discussion today with Lane. So which of the following do you think impacts work-life balance the most? And we have several answers for you to select from. And then we have a second question. Has your organization implemented any type of childcare support for employees? So do you offer any kind of support or help for employees? And if so, please share that with us in the chat. I think Lane and I can reference that as we're trying to bring you some new insights and information on childcare services. Chibs, are you ready for Lawyer on the Clock?
I am, Phil.
All right, Nick, let's roll it.
All right, it's time to look into what's trending in employment law. Lawyer, you're on the clock.
Thanks there, Phil. So, as you know, I'm an OSHA lawyer.
I am, yeah. Well, you're not an OSHA lawyer. You're a lawyer that practices OSHA compliance for Ogletree Deacons.
That's right. Shorthand, we call ourselves OSHA lawyers just to make it easier. But so as your listeners know, that's something that I do, and I do quite a bit of. And not often does an issue come up that excites me, but in the OSHA world, and I'm sure you're.
So this is excited Chibs right here.
That's right. I'm excited about the rulemaking process in a government agency. My life is at an all-time high here. So earlier this week on Monday, OSHA came out with a new rule about record keeping. And you might remember, I think I was on the show a few years ago where we have an issue with the same concept about record keeping. As you know, if you're a certain employer, you have a certain amount of employees, you're required to keep records of your injuries and your injury reports. Those are called your OSHA 300 and your 301 logs. There's a 300A log that you keep as well, which is kind of a summary of those reports. And typically what you did at the end of the year, you would submit that 300A log to the government. And OSHA would use that and collect data from it and try to formulate some sort of high target areas, maybe even classify certain industries as high hazard, and maybe even classify certain types of injury as things that they're going to look out for. Well, now we've got a new rule. And this is the political seesaw that is government agencies. The old rule, way back in 2016 under the Obama administration, had this idea where they were going to ask employers to submit their 300 and 301 reporting forms. This is different than the summary. This has data on it with individual names, types of injuries, how many days they were away from work, all sorts of detail that isn't in the 300A log. Well, when the Trump administration came in, they rolled that back and they pushed it out and we didn't have it anymore. All you had to do was the 300A. Now under the Biden administration, OSHA's finalized that rule again, and that came out on Monday. So here we are back and forth.
We are on the seesaw ride. Yes.
That's right. That's right. So in a nutshell, what happens under this new rule is that basically, if you're in a certain industry, and they've called them high hazard industries, and that's a little bit of a misleading term because I wouldn't consider grocery stores a high hazard industry, but they are.
Okay.
I would.
With strips and falls. Yeah.
Strips and falls. Right. We also have food production. Big one is healthcare. So if you're in the healthcare industry, that's going to be considered sort of a high hazard industry, much like construction. But if you have in one of those specific identified industries, if you have more than 100 employees, that's the threshold number, you're going to have to submit your 300s, your 301s, which are the incident reports, so the individual reports for each injury, and then the 300A, the summary. And that's all going to be submitted to the government, and that rule is going to go into effect January 1st of 2024. So I bring it up now because we've got about a little less than 5 months to sort of prepare ourselves for this. And what's going to happen and why this is important is because the way OSHA collects this data is going to influence the way that they target employers. You might see more programmed inspections, which is a term of art in my world. There's two types of inspections. There's unprogrammed and there's programmed. Programmed are a little bit broader. They're a little bit more, OSHA's got a little bit more liberties with them, whereas unprogrammed is exactly what it sounds. They show up, or someone calls in and there's an injury, they show up, and it's sort of limited to what
much more narrow focus on an unprogrammed.
Right. So programmed are a little bit different. They're a little bit larger scale typically, and they also expose the employer to more citations. So all this to say is that there's some new record keeping obligations. Not that you don't have to change how you record things or change how you write things down, but the way you're going to have to provide that information to the government looks like it's going to change, and it's going to change in about 5 months. And we might see a little bit more of an aggressive OSHA programs because they're going to have more data to work with. So I know I get excited about this, and that's probably why I'm in the area I am. But I wanted to share that with your audience today because it's something to look forward to, something to keep in mind, particularly as you fill out your 300s and your 301s, because you're going to have to put some possibly sensitive information in there. You're going to want to make sure you protect that by redactions and other forms when you submit that to the government, because the last thing you want to do is give out personal health information, of course. So with that being said, I was excited. I wanted to share it. I hope you guys find some value in it. But I'm looking forward to hearing from Lane as well. As a father of 3 kids, she's going to be speaking my language.
The real quick, some clarifying pieces to this, Chib. So first of all, high hazard industries. You would know if you're a high hazard industry. You gave us some examples of some. Yes. How would someone determine if they were a high hazard industry? So OSHA put out an appendix to this rule. It's listed as Appendix B, and it lists the types of industries covered. And I believe it's listed by NAICS number. Okay. So you've got an industry number where your employment or your practice falls into, and it'll go through there and identify the number. And you can pull these up and you can identify them. They're pretty broad in scope, so you'll have to kind of sort through the
the actual individual number to see where you fall. But for instance, one of the groups is a quote unquote other food manufacturing. That could be about anything.
It can
So
be
you might,
anybody. Yeah.
right, so you might need to go through and distill down and see what that is. But the listing is pretty broad in nature. And so the idea is to make this more expansive than rather under expansive.
Right. So high hazard industries with more than 100 employees have to submit the A-log now. And you know what I'm guessing, and maybe we have you back sometime, is we could do a quick update on tips, tricks, do's and don'ts to completing the A-log.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I might need more than 6 minutes for that, Phil.
Now we'll have you as our special guest. We'd love to do that. I think that might make sense from here as we do that. All right. So Chibs, I got a test for you here. Quick question. I know you consider yourself an OSHA lawyer, but you're so much more than that. I realize that you practice general employment law as well. But here we go. So have an employer who has a workforce. They have in monthly employee meetings, and in their monthly employee meetings, they provide normal lunch breaks are unpaid. Right? An hour-long lunch break, it's unpaid. During their monthly meetings, they provide a 30-minute lunch that they bring lunch in for everyone, and everyone's welcome to have lunch or bring their own lunch if they have a special diet, or even go out. They're not required to stay, but they just provide lunch for 30 minutes, and then they start a meeting 30 minutes later. And the employees normally have not been recording that hour lunch break on their timesheets. I guess it's my opinion that maybe that's not exactly right. I'd like to get your response to that. So it's a half hour where they're eating a company provided lunch, not mandatory, but then a mandatory employee meeting, if you will. We'll call it mandatory. You're expected to be there. Meeting for business update.
Sure. Yeah. So the lawyer in me would probably say, well, it depends.
Don't you say that? Don't you say that D word?
I'm going to give you a little bit more definitive answer. How about that D word for you? As long as the employees are not performing work during that 30-minute lunch that the company is providing, then that doesn't have to be paid. I think you picked up on it, though. The mandatory portion of that lunch hour, the 30 minutes, is going to be an extra 30 minutes that they're going to need to be paid because they're being required to be there. The discussion is related to work. The lunch is, the lunch is a bonus. It's a benefit. If they're free to go somewhere else or free not to partake, then, there's no requirement to be there. I'd say that you don't have to pay that 30-minute lunch break. All you got to do is pay the 30-minute meeting time.
I appreciate that you kept that precise and succinct. I mean, if Bert was here, we'd be talking about it. We would never get to Lane because he would start with the D word and he'd say, well, Phil, that depends. So I appreciate that, Chibs. Always great to have you. We're going to go on and we're going to move into the Philburt's Forum. Nick?
You've just entered Philburt's Forum, where we peel the onion back and take a lighter look at the workplace.
All right. So many of you that listen to the program regularly know that we have a special artificial intelligence guest named Monique. Monique is the great wise counsel, and she does a great job of kind of watching over all of us all the time with her sophisticated AI programming, and she'll randomly join the program. Well, she's been busy monitoring Bert in his spare time, and we got some photos that she has been working on as she is trying to become more human to represent a permanent spot on the program. Nick, I know she sent you these photos, kind of before and after photos. Can we queue up some of these photos and see what she sent us? Oh yeah, so she thought maybe it was a good idea that she resembles Stan Kroenke a little bit more. I would prefer not Stan Kroenke, Monique. I know you're out there listening. For anyone that's not from the St. Louis area, Stan Kroenke is not a beloved citizen of our community. He's the one that stripped away the St. Louis Rams and took them back to LA. It's not anything against LA, it's against Stan Kroenke and the things that he did. But I'm sorry, Monique, that's an absolute no.
Now this next one, I don't know if it's progress. You tell me, Phil.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I don't know, Lane, I got a giggle out of you, but that's a little creepy looking to me, Monique. I'm not sure that grin looks like something out of a horror movie. And I'm not sure, what do you have? She circled, is that supposed to be a beauty mark?
Well, yeah, that's something I circled. I thought at least she was getting a little accurate. I mean, she brought the beauty mark in there, so we're making progress.
Yeah.
A
See,
little
that's,
scary.
yeah, it is a little scary. I think that would work
You
well on
want
a horror.
scary? We'll give you scary.
Ooh,
Yeah, no, that is, again, I mean, this is workplace violence. I'm sure Tom would say this does not meet some of the OSHA requirements for highly hazardous workplaces. And that is a little scary. Can you imagine someone coming to work looking like that and making your employees feel comfortable? I'm sorry, Monique, this is the example where AI and humans just don't mesh well yet.
Did you mention the word uncomfortable?
Uncomfortable.
oh dear.
Yes, yeah, right on. Sorry, Monique, that's just a big fat no. We're going to say, keep trying. We like you in voice only. You do not have to look like a human in order to be on our program, and we're going to keep it PG-13. We do have some workplace sensitivity training and harassment training, and maybe you need to go in and look that up, Monique. But thank you. Nick, let's move on. We got to get away from Monique if we can. All right, so let's get to the core of our program, the Employers Lounge. Lane, welcome to the program. It's been a long time coming. I know I see about once a month in our roundtables, and I know we always talk about we need to get you on the program, and finally that's happened. Give us a little bit of background on yourself, Lane. Tell our members kind of who you are. I know you're an HR leader of one, which I always have the utmost respect for. It's a very tough job. But tell us a little bit about yourself and Childcare Answers.
Sure. So my prior experience was working in childcare programs myself when my children were young. And then once they went to school full time, I began working with families as a nanny and then a family assistant and eventually as an executive assistant. And once I finished with my HR degree, I knew that I wanted to stay working with smaller organizations. So when a position with CCA for Childcare Answers came open, it was the perfect fit. My role initially was meant to be the office manager. And then since I was early in my HR career, just wanted to get my foot in the door to support some basic HR functions. But my academic background and my work experience lent itself to service the other needs of Childcare Answers as they work toward attaining their own 501c3 and becoming an independent business. So I had the unique opportunity, and I say unique because I was so early in my HR career, to help set up the whole HR function for a small business and to continue developing it as an HR department of one. So what a way to learn.
Yes, so we're happy to have you. I know you attend our roundtables without ever missing, and we appreciate always your presence and contributions to that. But that's a great way that you've entered in, and almost like meant to be. You end up at childcare as a working mom who had to struggle with that. So what are the things that Childcare Answers does both for the employers and for the employees in the community of Indianapolis in this case?
So we will serve, the CCR services vary, but generally we help families find high quality childcare and provide general parenting support and assist them in making connections with other resources within their own communities.
Okay, so let's break that down. How does that work, right? You work primarily with employers and with families.
So we'll do both. A lot of times though, we work with our employers. We'll help them with tools and education so they can meet and understand the challenges of working parents, and then how doing this will support their bottom line. Right now, we've got just helping employers to understand away from the old mentality of, well, my employees' childcare issues are not my issues, and really bringing to light that, yeah, they are, and they're affecting how the work is getting done, if the work is getting done at all, and they're affecting your bottom line with retention.
Or whether or not I can even work because
Right.
of the resources available. I know when we think about childcare, the first thing most people think about is cost. That's that's a really common thought in childcare, but it's not just cost that's always the issue. It's not just quality of childcare, but it's even availability. If you're working a second or third shift, it may not even be available in certain communities or between the employer's home and the employer's location. So what are some of the offerings that you provide to employers? So you meet with an employer, someone says, hey, Lane, we'd love to meet with a representative of childcare. What do they start to do for the employer?
Sure. So, and just like any relationship you have, it has to be developed. So you kind of start slow and work your way up. But we track overall data on how childcare trends affect businesses. So we see gaps and help identify solutions. We can also provide custom surveys and reports for an individual organization. And then from there, figuring out what your employees need based on their feedback, we can help you figure out solutions. And we also have access to what other businesses have done. And we can even compare within the same industry, because obviously remote work isn't going to work for everybody. If you're in manufacturing, you need people, bodies in the workplace.
Right.
So we look at what other solutions have other companies within your industry instituted that have worked for them. Is it, splitting shifts? Is it sharing shifts? Is it job sharing? Or, is it offering other programs like flexible spending accounts or subsidies for childcare, or just, including in your onboarding and benefits information about what your local CCR&R are, so you can connect those employees to that agency and help work out solutions for them that way too.
So I also know, just from chatting with you, there are many organizations that do this in a for-profit model, right? So you've told me before, you'll go to a conference where employers are gathering, and you might be in the area with all the other vendors, and you might have other vendors who are selling, if you will, these childcare solutions. And you're a not-for-profit organization, and it does or does not cost the employer or the employee to use your services.
So it will not cost the employer or anyone to use our services. Childcare Answers is part of a network of state-funded agencies within the Childcare Resource and Referral Network. And so we're one of 5 in Indiana that serves our local community. We happen to serve Hamilton, Hendricks, and Marion counties, but there are other CCR&Rs nationwide that serve their own local communities.
Okay. And many of our listeners are coming from areas outside of Indiana or Indianapolis. If they're listening today and they're like, we might benefit from this and making some resources available to our employees, where might they turn to learn more?
So I did share some links with Nick, but also if they were to go to the Childcare Aware of America website, they also have a way that you can search for your state's local CCR&R.
Okay, so every state ideally would have resources to help their employers. And what is that site one more time for everyone? And we'll make sure to post it on the website as well.
Go to Childcare Aware of America.
Childcare.
And they'll have a.
Gotcha.
And they'll have a search engine. And I can only speak to the scope of work really that Indiana does, but all CCR&Rs will generally have a similar function. So always worth reaching out to your local CCR&R to find out what resources and support they have to offer. Yeah,
I think, when you think about childcare, it really, for me, it's something I didn't think much about. I had the advantage, some people would say the advantage, in our case, it made a significant financial disadvantage where I was working, but my wife stayed home with the kids. And that was the way that we chose to raise our family. Not suggesting one way is right or wrong. It's just that was our choice. But in our world, we saw it as a disadvantage. But it was just the fact that childcare costs so much, and it didn't make sense for her to work for the difference of what we would actually be bringing home. And when you look at that, it really came to light with COVID more than any other time, I think, because then our school system shut down, and was childcare during the summer. Now it's childcare often. It's during snow days, during, pandemic breakouts. It's during the summertime. It's off hours if I'm working second or third shift. And just one of the study, a recent study in Indiana estimates that companies have lost $1.8 billion every year from, wages as parents are missing work. I mean, that's a significant impact to individual businesses.
Right. Well, and in Indiana, the average number of days that a working parent with a child under 5 will miss is over 13 days of work.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And you think about your PTO program, if you're a new employee, you're not allotted that many days.
Right.
And that's just to take care of your child. That is not for any real time off from that standpoint. Just a quick question. Do you deal with remote work? Is this a new issue for childcare, which is I work remotely, but I have a child and my employer really doesn't prefer that the child be home while I'm working?
Right. I think that can pose a challenge for the business as far as work still needs to get done, and trying to define, can those employees really do their job fully if they've got children in the, basically in the workplace, if you've got children at home with you while you're trying to do your work. So yeah, I think that has had some its own challenges. And I think that's, again, where an employer can have that conversation with their local CCR&R and figure out what are other businesses doing to help alleviate this, what policies are putting in place, or what supports are they putting in place for their employees to go ahead and continue those childcare options so that the productivity doesn't fall.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at our survey results here, Nick. If you can pull those up, I'd like to have a chat with Elaine and Chibs. If I know Chibs is a daddy of 3, so he's experienced this himself. So the first survey result we had, the question again was, which of the following do you think impacts work-life balance the most? And the highest response that we got was flexibility, hours, and location. Elaine, love to get some insight on these responses from you and how they align with the challenges that you see. Would you agree with this?
I would, especially with the flexibility at Childcare Answers. I mean, we're a small team, a nonprofit. There are 15 of us. So one of the big things that is attractive to our employees and our staff is that we do flex time. So if you've got a doctor's appointment in the middle of the day, or you've got to take your child to the doctor, or something comes up in the middle of the day, you can take those couple hours or whatever, and you can shift them someplace else into the week. So, even though we have general core hours, we offer some flexibility with that, and that has had a significant impact, I believe.
And you said that so well, just like a seasoned HR professional that you are, that you can shift those hours to another time in the week, right? I know that's what Chibs was listening for. It's not like for 3 months from now. We got to do that within the week, that pay period. All right. And then the next highest response is just family responsibility and personal health. As it relates to that, these are big challenges that we all face. And I know with the changing demographics that's happening across the country, I'm going to just guess these 2 things are going to become increasingly important with that. What about the other question, Nick? Has your organization implemented any type of childcare support for employees? And overwhelmingly, no, it's not a fit for our organization. So that's really interesting. No, it's not a fit for our organization. That can probably mean a lot of things. Bert would say, well, that depends on what they mean by not a fit. What do you say to almost 80% of employers go, no, that doesn't fit our business?
Then I think they might want to really look at talking to their local CC&R&R, because we can help you figure out how you may not think it's a fit, but it is certainly affecting your business. Working parents are taking their talent to other employers that say, yeah, we can make this fit. We can help support you. So I think that it's really worth looking at to see how you can fit those supports in. And it doesn't have to be as expensive as some think.
So this isn't, well, we have to have a child care facility at our business place of business. That's not what you would be promoting. It's about the resources available within the community to meet the needs of the individual. Is that correct?
Right. And again, it's going back to what have other businesses in that same industry, in that same community, what are they doing to support their employees that has worked? and then having that deeper conversation. And maybe that's where we get some data from from that organization's employees. Maybe you don't think it's a good fit for your organization because you don't really know for sure what your employees need. You're just assuming that they need a childcare facility in their workplace. Maybe there are other ways you can help.
I think, sorry to butt in here, but from the conversation we had ahead of time, Lane, I mean, I think it's also how you look at things. A lot of times we're conditioned to kind of punish first and support later. So if somebody's tardy, maybe the reason they're continually tardy is because they're having trouble with childcare. And if you're proactive in asking those questions of how can I support rather than, give a pink slip, and differentiating ourselves as employers.
Well,
exactly.
I think I would wrap it up with, we spend a lot of time with Mikey Mack on this program, and our employers like working with him. And many times, even with Mikey Mack, he's not just saying raise wages. He's talking about providing the other ancillary services and benefits that make a difference to employers, that are important to employees. And I think that's what I'm hearing you say, Lane, is if you're a workplace and you're hiring parents of children, or parents who have children that need these services, that's something that you would maybe want to engage in, and you would want to promote and market and differentiate yourself from your competition. And that's what I'm really hearing you say. What's your competition doing? How do you separate yourself? How do you give yourself an opportunity to gain some resumes and get the best talent, particularly in a tight and gonna grow increasingly tighter labor market? And you've heard me say it, people on the program have heard me say it, is it's not going to get easier to recruit from here. It's just not going to get easier. It's only going to be more difficult. Lane, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so happy we got a chance to do this. Chibs, as always, happy to have you on the program. You're such a delight. I'm so happy to see a safety lawyer so excited about having to submit a log. That is something that just is beyond me, but your excitement does drive me. So we will be back here next Thursday at 7:30 Central Time. We'll see you then. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your colleagues. Forward our invites. Share the link, aimea.org/thisweekatwork, or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment, like LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere you are. And you can be part of the show. Send your questions and comments anytime to info@thisweek.work. We'll see you next week, 7:30 a.m. Central Time, when we discuss what's happening this week at work.